Hey, I want to make a quick video today about cylinder slop. A lot of people ask me questions about cylinder slop all the time, and they ask me, is it normal? And if it's not normal, can I fix it? Well, I want to go over all of that today and hope that this doesn't get me a channel strike, because I don't consider this showing you how to modify a gun. I consider this showing you how to fix a gun, but they'll probably think otherwise over at YouTube. But still, I wanted to show everyone what cylinder slop is, and if it's okay, and if it's not okay, how to fix it, like I've said already. First, what is it? Well, cylinder slop is when your cylinder can rotate just a little bit inside the gun. You see how it rotates just a little bit? Now, it's not going to be a lot. If it's a lot, you got a problem. If it's a little, though, it's actually quite normal. And you should notice that when your gun is uncocked, there should be more cylinder slop than once you cock it. Once I cock this, I can barely move it. I'll hold it up to the microphone here so you can hear the difference. This is with it cocked. You can barely hear it rattle. That's with it uncocked. You can hear it a lot better. So that's what cylinder slop is, that little bit of movement in your cylinder. And like I said, it's normal. You can kind of see it here as I'm rattling the gun here. If I could hold the gun steady enough, which is hard, because cylinder slop really isn't excessive in most guns. It's just noticeable when you actually can feel it because you have your fingers on the cylinder. Now, that is, like I said already, normal, and it's nothing to worry about. In fact, in some guns, it'll be a little bit more than this, and it's still nothing to worry about as long as it locks up relatively tightly when the gun is cocked. Now, some guns, like my Performance Center model here, they won't have any cylinder slop. This thing won't move. It's like welded in place because they take a little bit more time and they make these very precise. And the parts they spend more time on is the actual cylinder stop itself and the little notches here they put in the cylinder for that cylinder stop. Because they machine these so precisely and make sure they're fitted really well, you have less cylinder slop. And that brings us to how you actually go about fixing a cylinder slop if you have too much of it. Now, if you look at a cylinder from the end, of course, it looks like a perfect little circle. But if you were to cut this back a little bit and do an actual representation of the outer surface of the cylinder here, you'd see where the little notches have been cut into the gun. Talking about these right here. This is what the cylinder stop clicks into. And you'll notice there's a little recessed area on one side to allow the cylinder stop to slide into place there. Now, this is a little secret for you. If you don't know which way your cylinder rotates, look at where that little slot is pointed. If it's pointed off that side, well, then the cylinder rotates that way. It always rotates the way those little slots are pointing. Now, right down here, you can see that's the actual cylinder stop. It's a little spring-loaded piece that comes up and should fit perfectly into those slots. And when you're firing the gun, let's go ahead and push the safety back here so that I can pull the trigger. When you're firing the gun, you will notice when you pull the trigger or cock the hammer, see how it clicks down quickly and then back up? Well, what it's doing there is it's allowing, you can see the hand coming up. If you look in here, you can see the hand coming up to rotate the cylinder, and the little cylinder stop is clicking out of the way to allow that hand to actually move that cylinder. So that little cylinder stop clicks down out of the way in the first movements of the trigger. The cylinder starts to turn. It springs back up because it's spring-loaded. It rotates along the cylinder. That's how you get those drag lines on the cylinders of revolvers that bother so many people. They're actually kind of required for the gun to work properly, because once it rotates around the side of the cylinder, it hits that little indent. It starts to slide back up as it slides into that indentation and then clicks back into that little slot again, holding the cylinder firmly. And the way it holds the cylinder firmly is it fits very precisely in here. It's fit very precisely to both the frame and to the little slot in the cylinder. And when it is fit precisely like that, there's almost no movement of the cylinder. Now, if it's a little bit loose, if it hasn't been fit perfectly or the slots aren't perfect, you can have a little bit of play, like guns that aren't quite as finely tuned as the Smith & Wesson Performance Center. But like I said, a little bit of slop is okay. Now, the problem is when you have a lot of slop. Well, a lot of slop can be caused by a couple of different things. You can have a bad cylinder stop. It can be worn out. It can be just not properly fit. It can just be a problem. Doesn't fit into the frame well, doesn't fit into the slots well, or it could be a problem with the actual little slots on the gun that are cut for the cylinder stop. They may not be cut deep enough, or they may be cut irregular, or they may just be worn. If that's true, well, there's different things you can do. If the slots just aren't deep enough, they can actually cut them again, make them perfect. But most likely, if it's worn or anything, you're just going to have to get a new cylinder. Luckily, the problem isn't usually the cylinder. It's usually the cylinder stop itself. It's usually worn, damaged, bent, whatever, or just wasn't fit properly when it was first put in the gun. And you can usually solve that by buying a cylinder stop and replacing the one you have now. Now, you might have to get one that's a little extra wide and then machine it down to where it fits properly. But once you do that, you should have your cylinder slop issues fixed. So as you see, that's what cylinder slop is, and those are the two things that affect it, the slots on the cylinder and the cylinder stop. Now, in severe circumstances, you could have a damaged crane, but you can check that easily just by closing the gun up, closing the cylinder, and if the crane fits properly, that's probably not the issue. It's either the cylinder stop or the actual, like I said, slots on the cylinder. Now, luckily, like I said, the cylinder stop is usually the problem, and it is cheap and easy to replace. So that's something that you can do yourself quite easily. Now, if it is the cylinder, if there's excessive wear, whatever, you're going to have it either machined, if it's a problem that could be fixed by machining, or you're going to have to replace the cylinder, which luckily is also not super expensive. It's way cheaper than throwing it away and buying another gun, I'll tell you that. So cylinder slop is something that does happen. Certain amounts of it are normal, and it's only a problem when it's excessive. And when it is excessive, it's usually a pretty easy fix. Hey, this is the Yankee Marshal, just reminding everyone out there that if you disagree with anything I say in any one of my videos, be it something political or tactical, I am going to give you the opportunity to come talk to me face to face instead of just having to put stuff in comment sections where someone might not even read them. You can come in one of my live chats and tell me off in person. You just have to send an email to shootingleftofcenter@gmail.com, and in the subject line of that video put slap the yank, and then I will get back with you and set up a time where you can come in one of the live chats and tell me off face to face.